Listen. Spider-Man is easily the best superhero Marvel has, absolutely no questions asked. Like, I swear people were showing up to these showings dressed up as the Human Spider. Parents were cheering louder than their kids. Like, they were selling out tickets just to take a picture with the poster in the lobby. So if you catch this with a packed audience, there's absolutely no way you don't have a blast, even if it is one of those stories where you're left with more questions than Feige gets during a press run. But you know what? Bless the theater workers this weekend, because not only are these showtimes jam-packed, they're breaking records, they're snatching up screenings from The Matrix, but we already know that Marvel has conditioned audiences to stay during the credits, so RIP to the AMC Safe and Clean guarantee. But if you are going, obviously go for that IMAX, because not only will you be getting the full frame so that you can catch some pretty neat Easter eggs, but you'll be able to see the whole thing. And I think that this is Daredevil when it's really Stewie from Succession, because you already know how Marvel does it.
They'll see what I want them to see!
So with a triple spoiler warning out of the way, let me explain.
The multiverse is real?
So No Way Home takes place immediately after Far From Home, as Peter's on his way home after having his identity revealed, and J. Jonah Jameson has finally convinced the entire world that Spider-Man's a masked menace, all while pushing more vitamins than Joe Rogan. So Parker's homecoming ends up being worse than Sky High's. He now needs to keep things on the down low, as Matt Murdock finally gets to be seen in the MCU, pulling up as this really good lawyer that's just magically able to get him out of all legal trouble. But that doesn't change the fact that the whole world hates him for reportedly, allegedly, supposedly killing Mysterio.
Execute them all!
Happy, on the other hand, it's kind of saddened to hear that he's probably going to go to prison for keeping all that Stark tech, but I was happy to see that Tony's OG robot continues to appear throughout the MCU, which is always one of my favorite parts of it, but not as ecstatic as I was as seeing the Daredevil team finally make a comeback this week.
Nelson and Murdoch. Avocados at law.
Peter's now the most famous person in the world, with his face on every magazine. His school has up security on a daily basis. There is legit people leaping at his feet, and yet the boy just walks down Bleecker Street to go visit Strange like it's nothing. Now, I really wish that the movie focused more on that aspect, because even with the schooling, I'm completely on Doctor Strange's side. Who cares when you're fighting aliens? But if the writers wanted us to care about that, they needed to spend more time with it. There's literally only one moment that happens at the school, where you see all these producer kids acting as extras, taking pictures of him, but they don't show you the pressure of what he's feeling. Even the rest of the cast is cut down. Betty reports for one scene saying "Go Tigers," but that's pretty much it. Flash is just there to sell a book, even though they've been hyping up his infatuation with Spider-Man for the previous 2 movies. And I really thought they were going to get into it, where he has to decide between keeping his MIT admissions or throwing away college for the clout of knowing nothing. Literally nothing. Honestly, he went through more as a lobby boy than he did knowing an Avenger.
He's alright. He's no Spider-Man.
What is it with you and Spider-Man?
He's inspiring. He inspires me to be a better man. What's up, dickwad?
The world is now divided on him being good or evil, even though, I don't know, I feel like Edith would have had some recordings on the server. I feel more people would have remembered he fought Thanos. Are there no Avengers out there to vouch for the boy? Peter and his friends get denied by MIT because of everything that's going on, so Pete decides to go visit Doctor Strange in order for him to cast a neuralizer spell that would cause things to go back to normal. But this boy ends up re-editing it more times than a Kanye album, and so Steven has to shut it down.
Stop talking!
Peter realizes that one of his biggest superpowers is communication, and he can just go talk to the Chancellor, so he finds her on the bridge as she's traveling over to the airport. And even though they had denied them due to all of the controversy, because they're thinking of the safety of the school, she ends up getting viciously attacked because she's there with Peter and goes, yeah, that's definitely something I want on my campus. That then leads us to the first of many villains that come from previous movie timelines that I can't wait to cover in a full Spidey franchise video, but we begin with one of the best, Dr. Otto Octavius from the best live-action Spider-Man. He's there looking for his Peter Parker, who ruined his machine.
The power of the sun in the palm of my hand.
Unbeknownst to him, he's never seen an MCU movie, so he doesn't recognize who Tom Holland is, but when he snatches Peter's nanotech to cover his robo-arms, Peter pulls a reverse Uno card and just pairs his device like he found some lost AirPods.
Looks like we got competition.
Strange then transports them back and sets up an underground dungeon for Peter to capture these 5 sinister fellows that have come from previous Sony pictures. Enter the Sandman from Spider-Man 3, who's really just chilling the whole movie, just trying to find the first portal back to see his daughter.
I'm just here to see my daughter.
Dr. Connors from the first Amazing Spider-Man is still a full lizard, and would ironically agree with Peter's plan.
I can save them. I can cure them. There's no need to stop me, Peter.
Electro from Amazing Spider-Man 2 crosses the multiverse and gets lined up because of it. I've been hearing so many theories on this man, how did he get here? Why does he look different? And it's hilarious how in-depth people go when literally it was just Jamie Foxx's demand.
We promised him he wouldn't be blue.
He straight up told the producers that he wanted a new look or he wouldn't come back because he was just done with being blue in movies.
Look at this place and all the possibilities.
But then, of course, there's the one. the only Green Goblin. I absolutely love Willem Dafoe in this. It was just dope to see how eager and giddy he was to get back into this role. And we first see him with Aunt May, who's working at Feast, where Miles Morales would eventually volunteer at. And that's where an innocent Norman runs away to, not realizing that Goblin is secretly pulling the strings to still get to Peter. And at first, he is the only willing one to help Peter with his plan of curing the bad guys, beginning with Doc Ock.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
Peter even fights with Doctor Strange about the fate of these villains, since altering their outcomes from their timelines would drastically change the multiverse and cause complete chaos. And Peter's like, how about not? But while they switch on and off about the multiverse logic a lot, I really did like Holland Spider-Man in this one, probably the most out of all of his movies, because he's really looking to cure the bad guys, knowing that transporting them back would lead to their deaths, and he himself is still dealing with the death of Mysterio on his hands. Mind you, I don't know how curing some of these powers would change the evil motivations a couple of these fools have, but again, I like this Spidey the most in this. Meanwhile, Doctor Strange is pulling quotes from other movie universes.
If he dies, he dies.
Peter ends up trapping Strange, beating his magic with math, the same way the MCU covers up their plot holes, only for him to realize that the bad guys are bad. Peter's tingle tingles, and it leads him to Norman, who's been sent back to the sunken place as Goblin retakes over. And I'll just say this, if you're out here praising Willem Dafoe and Goblin's glider, then also go support Dafoe in the film by Del Toro, because Spidey shouldn't be snatching up those showtimes either. But look, the moment he slipped back into that scrappy voice, it took me from 2022 back to 02. Having him with his mask off only made it creepier, because this man was smiling while he was getting smacked. His eyes caused more nightmares than Guillermo's alleys. All of his fight scenes with Peter were just absolutely brutal. Listen, the rest may be sinister villains, but honestly, when you look at it, what's a goon to a goblin?
Peter, no good deed goes unpunished.
He ends up gliding his glider into Aunt May, blaming her for making Peter weak and having a
code.
And it ends up being Aunt May's death that not only becomes Holland Parker's biggest loss, but it leads to him finally hearing the words,
with great power
comes great responsibility.
Now look, it's impossible for Holland to not deliver a good cry scene. It's clear from this point that they've really been building this up to be the most extensive origin story that's taken about 6 movie appearances. But I kind of liked it. Like, they had to shoot Peter in order for him to get off Aunt May. That entire scene was a top-notch Spidey moment, except for the point when goofy Happy Hogan pulls up past an armed military convoy like it's a drive-thru.
That's not your job. Maybe it is.
Then we get the biggest moment of them all that I feel like everyone's been anticipating as they bring back the previous Spider-Man with their iconic scores. And I feel like even when the movie comes out on Disney Plus, 4K, all that, nothing's gonna match the experience of seeing it with a crowd. Like, that's just something, you can't pay for that. And I can't wait to cover all of the franchises in a big LME, but I'm also aware that I can put my fan glasses to the side and admit that, unlike the Spider-Verse, this movie does rely heavily on the nostalgia and us knowing these characters more than it does the independent screenwriting for the movie. But nonetheless, I don't think anybody cared. Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield do reprise their roles for an insane check and appear in the MCU to comfort Holland's Spider-Man and make him realize that with great timelines comes a great box office, and they all do it to save the multiverse. And look, Andrew deserves that Oscar for Tick Tick Boom for sure, but he also deserves the People's Choice for his performance during this press run.
It's Andrew Garfield playing Spider-Man again. Yeah. Oh, you almost got me. I'm not the werewolf. This is about this Spider-Man Photoshop thing that we talked about on Jimmy Fallon. You're the werewolf. You're the fucking werewolf. Look at him. It's like he's doing this. But then ain't none. Like I ain't got a call. No. I'm not. We'll all find out. I'm sorry in advance.
Look, Tobey will always be my Spider-Man up until we probably get that live-action Miles Morales movie, but honestly, Andrew Garfield ate this one up.
We do have to ask you about Spider-Man.
Oh yeah,
everybody's saying
we have to.
Everybody's saying you may be in it. There's a cameo. Why don't you just go ahead? Why speculate?
You guys are really good at your jobs, but I'm better at mine.
Like, this man wasn't playing. He knew that all 3 of them were going to be up on screen and that naturally people were going to be ranking them, and this boy went for nothing short of the gold. When he said I love you to the other 2, they should have said it back. Calling him Peter 3 only made me like him more because now I think he deserves his 3rd movie. And after getting that Aunt May scene, Garfield one-ups it with his MJ save after not being able to reach Gwen. Meanwhile, poor Tobey was in a Spidey AARP commercial.
My back! Oh, my back!
In my opinion, he looked so zoned out when he first appeared. Like, I know they made that joke that he was in his youth pastor fit, but he also walked through that portal like he thought he was being raptured. And I think it would have been cool to see him with a beard, kind of emulating an old man Logan, because look at Strange, even he knows what a good beard adds, considering he's got that Just for Men guard in the basement. But I will say, it was bogus to not make him the leader, because 1, he is the most mature. 2, they're not even Holland's villains for him to be handling them. And 3, being an Avenger never meant you led them.
Bitch, please, you've been to space.
In terms of the multiverse logic, look, it definitely feels like it's all over the place and that it was relying more on whatever the screenwriters, needed to pick and choose. Because for starters, the original spell that pulls the villains in is supposed to bring in everyone who knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man. But like, not really. Like, if you can bring back dead villains, then I kind of ask, why not dead loved ones? All 3 Petes are scientists, so out of curiosity alone, they would have gone down that path. The moment you know the multiverse is real and you can alter things for murderers, then how would the grief that they're all still suffering from not lead them to at least contacting those they've lost?
No, please.
It's also funny how they vary the times with them all, because the Spider-Man have grown and they're jumping from their present, but for whatever reason, Sandman and Connors haven't aged from the last time the audience saw them on DVD. Electro didn't even know Peter was Spider-Man, so that kind of goes against the spell, and they even double down on that as he looks at the audience and wishes Andrew was Miles Morales. Honestly, it should have been Harry, since he did know. Then there's Otto and Norman, who were dead in their world, so that just makes everything wonkier, because Norman going back cured would change that entire trilogy, because now Harry would never go through his downfall. Norman would be alive to fund Otto's experiments and have memories of that mistake. And by 3, who even knows if MJ and Tobey would be together? At some point, it felt less like the MCU was fixing the villains, and more like they thought they were fixing the previous franchises. Because even if you take the branching timelines approach, where they all go back to different altered universes, then Holland Parker didn't really save them from dying, he just saved these variants.
Well, I mean, when you put it like that.
All I'm saying is, you bring up the possibilities, then I ask, why didn't Kang fight the South?
I'm sorry, kid.
Yeah, me too.
Don't.
They all end up fighting on top of the Statue of Liberty, which is being remodeled to honor Steve, as if the Rogers play wasn't enough. But I personally never saw Peter as being the next Tony, like the MCU has been pushing so hard, because I always thought he had more of the attitude to be the next Steve.
You got hard, kid. Where you from?
Queens?
Brooklyn.
Mind you, that's just in the MCU. Really, he should always just be the next Spider-Man. We get this massive fight amongst all the scaffolding that proves all the leaks to be true, as John Campea goes to prison based off of his own logic, and one by one they start curing the bad guys. Sandman becomes human again as they dusted off the shots from Spider-Man 3 and just recycled them. Same thing for Lizard's footage as he reverts back to Dr. Connors, not even giving him the choice of living in his new skin. Electro gets unplugged, and Doc Ock redeems himself by helping the heroes and meeting a full-grown Peter, as they're both
Trying to do better.
Well, being brilliant's not enough, young man. You have to work hard.
Tom Spidey, however, is not, as he's close to killing Goblin as the other two just watch. But then Tobey Spidey swings in to block as Andrew just watches, only for Tobey to get stabbed in the back again by a Sony production as we all just watch. Norman is cured from being Goblin as Strange gets pitched the plan for Marvel to continue getting their green, and that's to just have everyone forget that Peter Parker ever existed, and thus they don't have to worry about a timeline problem when it comes to the MCU. But considering that the spell is meant to stop the other universes, are y'all just not gonna tell the other two that their lives just got wiped? Not knowing he's Spider-Man is one thing, but a spell that eradicates everyone from knowing who Peter Parker even is from every existence is insane. Tobey's really about to go home and have a 51st date moment with MJ.
Do you have any idea who I am?
No.
No? That sucks.
So unless Feige has a memory charm for the audience, look, Wong was right. That said, the final goodbyes, until they run him back, were pretty touching. Seeing Ned go from the man in the chair to the boy with the finger, magic, was fun to watch. And he really is a real one, because throughout, he just trusts Peter no matter what. Even in the end, when their entire friendship is about to be Control-Alt-Deleted, all he asks his boy is if things are going to be alright. And he goes, alright then. Mind you, now that he doesn't know Peter and his grandma is sewing up some fits, his MIT resources may turn him into the Hobgoblin.
I mean, they have crime in Boston, right?
Yes.
Yeah, wicked crime.
Michelle Jones, not Watson, shares a final kiss with Peter, but stops him from saying I love you until they meet again, just like Cap got rain checked on his dance.
Men and women grow apart, but the journey they share together will always be a part of them.
And in the end, Peter sacrifices his friendship for their safety as everyone goes their separate ways, and as he becomes a man in his own suit, finally living on his own as he's left to face the biggest threat of them all.
Rent?
Thank you all for checking out this video. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below in the comment section. We also did have a mid-credit scene with Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock as we saw him transport to Mexico at the end of Venom 2. And I don't know how he would also know Peter's identity, but if they are chopping it off to the hive mind that Venom was talking about, then where's my boy Topher?
Hey, Parker.
Eddie also learns about the Avengers and Thanos, so him going back to his world would mean that he is completely separate, and since he's on his way to New York to see his Spider-Man, I'm still crossing my fingers, like I said in my Venom LME, that it's gonna be Andrew Garfield, because he even mentioned wanting to fight his own alien. As for the symbiote little drop that he left behind, honestly, I'm just curious to see if it's gonna be Tom Hardy's voice, since he's the one who does it for Venom. Are they gonna keep that? Are they gonna do something different? Then comes the last clip, all the way at the end, which I felt was just lazy. They really played us a trailer like we were waiting in Hall H. And look, don't get me wrong, I am mad excited for Multiverse of Madness, considering Sam Raimi's coming back for it. And honestly, they keep teasing the fact that the Foxx X-Men might come in. And honestly, if I ever see Logan come back, I'll gasp more than I did in this movie. But look, after credit scenes are ads, but this was a commercial. And to see the text say Doctor Strange will return in a Spidey movie, we don't even get that for him. I don't like that, but I don't know what the future plans are, because they keep saying there's going to be a new trilogy, then they wobble that back, and they're saying they're going to work on 4. I know everybody wants Andrew to get his 3rd because that was something they were planning. I mean, it's just opened it up to so many things, so I'm very curious where they take it, because I feel like Tom Holland is now going to get a proper Spider-Man story. It's finally not relying on all the MCU bells and whistles. But I'm curious to know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Like I said, I'll be making an entire Spidey timeline LME that'll cover all of the movies that have been out there featuring Spider-Man in live action. But I'm curious to know your thoughts. What is your favorite movie out of all of the ones that are out so far? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. And until next time, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and Andrew will crack your back better than Gwen's.